back with some boxing today, man. Listen, big fight tomorrow, the rematch. We're running it back. Beterbiev, Bivol 2. Let's talk about it. But first, I want to get into the card. Is this the card of the century? We don't know. It could be. When you look at the lineup that they have, I want to go down this list and list off these fights here. And you tell me what you think. You start off with Joshua Buatsi, versus Caleb Smith for Buatsi's WBO light heavyweight interim title. Then you have Big Bang Zhilei Zhang versus Caballero for the vacant WBC interim heavyweight title. Next, Virgil Ortiz Jr. versus Israel Madrimov. Madrimov had the big fight against Terrence Crawford back in September, I believe. He lost the fight at 154. He lost his title, but it was a very, very close fight. I thought Crawford won it, but he made me a fan that night, man. And they're fighting for Ortiz's WBC World Interim Super Welterweight title. Okay? Then you have Carlos Adames versus Hamza Shiraz for Adames' WBC middleweight title. Adames definitely making noise at middleweight. And then you look at Shakur Stevenson. We're going to talk about that. It was supposed to be against Kid Austin, Floyd Schofield, but that fight got canceled. Schofield pulled out of the fight for mysterious reasons. I'll get into that a little bit later. And then the co-main event, Joseph Parker. Listen, we have fights being rearranged left and right, man. Joseph Parker, he has a last minute opponent after Dubois had to pull out of the fight. He was supposed to be fighting for Dubois' IBF heavyweight belt, and now Dubois pulled out the fight, and Martin Bakole flying in from the Republic of Congo, I believe, to take that challenge. And that changes everything, man. That's a huge matchup tomorrow. Estimated time 4:40 Eastern Standard Time for their walkout time. And then the main event, Artur Beterbiev running it back versus Dmitry Bivol. So let's go ahead and talk about the fights that got rearranged. And I want to start with the Shakur Stevenson and Floyd Schofield fight, because that was one I was really, really looking forward to. You have Shakur Stevenson, world champion. You know, come on, he has a WBC belt. He's had it for, I think, a little over a year or whatnot. WBC title going against Floyd Schofield, who was ranked pretty high by the WBC. And Schofield pulled out of the fight a few days ago with a mysterious illness. And this is from ESPN, from what I was reading. Schofield's father came out and said, hey, my son was poisoned and he'll be back. He's not ducking anybody. He's not running from pillow hands. Shakur Stevenson. And, that was that. And more importantly, it was confirmed by one of the promoters, I think Bob Warren. He came out and said one of the commissions went to visit Schofield in the hospital and said he wasn't fit to fight, and that's why he's not fighting. So let me know what you guys think of that. What do you think about Warren's confirmation that Schofield was held out of the fight? And do you think that Schofield was looking forward to fighting, or do you think he was avoiding Shakur Stevenson? I think it's a great matchup personally. I really wanted to see it. I think that Shakur Stevenson was favored going to that fight from my vantage point, but I thought that the hand speed, the punch placement, and just the overall tenacity and just speed would make it a very, very good, competitive, tough fight for Shakur and push him. But now you have Josh Padley filling in for him, and they were able to make the fight quick. Josh Padley actually ranked, I believe, one spot higher than Schofield on the WBC ranking list. 15-0, 4 knockouts, 29-year-old lightweight from Doncaster, England. First professional fight in 2019. Points win over Jamie Quinn. In September, this past September, he was on the undercard of Daniel Dubois and Anthony Joshua when Dubois stopped Joshua at Wembley Stadium in that big fight that got him the IBF belt to begin with. and he had a big win over Mark Chamberlain. Now Chamberlain was a favorite of Turkey Al-Sheikh, excuse me, and he beat him by upset in a points victory. And I was looking at the highlights, very good back and forth fight, but he came out, he was landing some counter shots and really went and earned that fight. He earned that win. So we'll see how he does against Shakur. I think Shakur is going to win this fight, but it's definitely a game opponent. But I think that Shakur is going to be able to beat him. He has a shorter reach, and he hasn't been training for Shakur. And the skill disparity, I think, is a little too much for him to catch Shakur by surprise. But that's just my thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And what do you think is next for the winner? If that's Shakur, which I think it will be, what do you think is next for him? If that is Padley with the unconventional upset, where do you think he goes from this point on? Do you think he starts looking at, the winner starts looking at names like Tank Davis, the winner of Devin Haney and Ryan Garcia, if they want to move up 5 pounds? I mean, there's a lot of different options. Let me know what you guys think. Moving on, the next fight that kind of got blown up is the fight between Joseph Parker and Daniel Dubois. Now, we had the fight between Schofield and Shakur Stevenson get flipped on his head, and they had to find a replacement opponent. And now the same thing's happening with this fight. And Dubois came down with an illness, I think yesterday or the day before, and he couldn't fight. And they somehow were able to find a replacement in the blink of an eye. So in the co-main event, Daniel Dubois knocked off with an illness, and Martin Bakole was able to fill that spot. Now, mind you, he's coming off a big win over Jared Anderson. Jared Anderson did not have a good showing in his first fight back. I think it might have been 1 or 2 weeks ago. You have to question whether his heart is in it and whether this is really the sport for him, because he didn't really look like he had that fire, that drive, that passion that you need to fight at this level, at heavyweight, especially with the competition that's coming up. I mean, you have to really ask yourself. I mean, he's a young dude, but the mentality is just as important as the physical skill. But you look at Bakole, he's coming into this fight with a lot of energy, a lot of confidence. He's a larger dude. He has a different frame. And now Joseph Parker is preparing for a completely different guy. I mean, they literally called Bakole up. Ben Shalom, CEO of Boxer Promotions, told ESPN, he said, we heard Daniel Dubois had the illness. We started putting Bakole forward, and he really wanted to fight. He said, I was up on a press conference trying to get it done. And then I had a couple of calls with His Excellency, Turkey Al-Sheikh, and it was done. Pretty incredible. I never made a fight that quickly. So, I mean, like, it's going down, bro. And Joseph Parker, he's had quite a resurgence in his career. I haven't really followed him that closely, but I was aware of him, but he's really been sharp. Like, he's coming off a 5-fight win streak, including those back-to-back knockout, back-to-back victories over Deontay Wilder, as well as Zhilei Zhang, who's on this fight card as well. So, look, if I was Joseph Parker, this is a tough fight to take for 2 reasons. 1, completely different opponent. And 2, you're taking this fight on short notice. And who knows if this isn't lining up to be something similar to what we saw with Manny Pacquiao when he was the last-minute replacement for Dubois way back in the day. Dubois was a clear and heavy favorite going into that fight, especially with Manny Pacquiao being a replacement fighter, and completely got the script flipped on him. So, flipped on him. So, this is a huge risk. Joseph Parker, he acknowledged as much. He said this is a huge risk, and that's why I took the fight even on short notice, because he wants to be great. And boy, is he going to have to be great to beat this guy. He has the skills to do it, but Bakole, all it takes is one punch. Can change everything. And the winner of this fight, now they're in the mix for getting a shot possibly at Dubois once he's healthy, or Alexander Usyk maybe. So this is a huge fight right here. And don't you forget, Zhilei Zhang, he's sitting there waiting in the weeds. Father Time is keeping a close eye on him. You don't know when he's going to catch up with you, but he's in the mix to possibly get a shot at a title if he's able to have a good showing and maybe be on the radar for Turkey Alashi. Just throw him in the ring with Bakole or Parker, whoever wins that fight, or somebody else. So, let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you think Bakole is going to get the upset, or you think that Joseph Parker is going to continue his win streak and set himself up for a big fight against Dubois or Alexander Usyk? Let me know. And then last, I want to go to the prediction for this main event between Beterbiev and Dmitry Bivol. The first fight, a high-level chess match. I loved that fight, and it was a very hard fight to call. And Beterbiev came out with the win, 7-5. That's the same score that I had on my scorecard. There were some swing rounds you could have given to either guy. I could have seen it as a draw as well. I did not think that Dmitry Bivol won, simply because he started to slow down later into the fight. I thought he won the first 3 rounds. I thought the next 3 rounds were won by Beterbiev. And then round 7, Bivol was clearly dominating that round. I thought he was really building some momentum and just pouring it on Beterbiev. And then in one exchange, he stayed 1 punch too long. It was like a 5 or 6 punch sequence. He stayed 1 punch too long, got clipped when Beterbiev punched with him at the same time, caught him in between a combination, and he was on the retreat for the remainder of the round, and he got pummeled from that point forward. And then he came out in round 8 and 9. I thought he did enough to take those rounds, and then round 10, he started to fade. And I think some of the body work that Beterbiev was doing from earlier in the fight caught up with Bivol. Started to be a little more stationary, taking some more shots than I thought he should take, and then he wasn't able to win the last championship rounds. I mean, if you want to talk about round 12, that's a swing round as well. I thought that AB took it, but Bivol, he definitely was fighting back in the last minute and trying to regain that round. I just thought that he just wasn't able to hold up over the last 3, and along with some of the things that went on in the previous rounds, I thought that Beterbiev did enough to win that fight. I just thought that Bivol took a lead. He was up 5-4 at one point on my scorecard, and he just lost the championship round. So we'll see if he can do something to rectify that this time around. But I don't think there's really much to change in terms of how I'm breaking down this fight. If you want to get my mindset on the way I see this fight playing out, go back and look at my first video. I'll leave it in the description. But look at my first prediction video from the first fight. And I pretty much saw it as a boxer going against a boxer puncher. Beterbiev, against conventional knowledge, is not simply just a brawler. He is a tactician who likes to come forward and apply pressure and set traps and get you to make mistakes. And then once he gets you to make mistakes, then he can unleash that power, land a big shot, and then slowly be able to break your will. And Bivol, to his credit, he's built different. He's a tough dude. I thought that there were a few times where he got hurt. Round 7, like I mentioned before, as well as round 11, when Beterbiev was really starting to put it on him a little bit. I had the punch count landed at 37-15 for Beterbiev in that 11th round. But he dug deep, and he was able to bite down on his mouthpiece and tough it out through those rounds and come back and try to almost win that 12th round. So from my vantage point here, I think that Bivol, 3 things he has to look at. First one, obviously, footwork. Footwork. Can you stay on the move and use your jab from range? Use that jab and use your feet to be able to establish distance from Artur. That is rule number 1 with this dude. Because you're dealing with a guy who probably could be fighting at cruiserweight, who's actually fighting at light heavyweight. So I think that's part of the reason why he's able to take a lot of punches that some of these other guys cannot take at this weight class. And he doesn't have to put in nearly the amount of effort to land the same amount of power, if not more, than his opponents. Secondly, head movement. Bivol he had very, very good lateral movement with his legs, but at times he got stationary with his head movement. And I pointed that out at a couple different spots in my post-fight analysis of the first fight. And there were a few times where he's throwing the jab, and Beterbiev was able to time him and counter with his own jab, and you can see how Bivol's jab didn't really shake Beterbiev off his square, but it certainly got the attention of Bivol. So he's going to have to really make sure he moves his head off the center line. Very important. And then third, like I said before, but we're going to build on to this, the countering of Artur's jab. Okay, so when Artur wants to time you and throw that jab, try to catch you in between punches, you have to feint him, man. He had a couple times in that fight, well, throughout the fight, I thought he boxed masterfully. He just was not able to do it throughout the course of the rounds. He fought in spurts. And to me, you're going to need a little bit more than that to beat Beterbiev. But when he's able to counter Artur Beterbiev's jab, he really had a lot of success, especially when he countered with, he caught the jab and then countered 1-2, shot 1-2 back. And he was able to be successful in spots with that. I really thought he was very successful doing that, but it's only so long before Beterbiev can make the adjustments. And he did later in the fight, along with Bivol, I think, just getting a little bit tired. And then the keys to victory for Beterbiev, jab. Again, so like this is a chess match of jabs, in my opinion. And they both have very, very good jabs. I think Bivol has the better jab. He has one of the best jabs in boxing from my vantage point. But Beterbiev has a hell of a jab. And they come from the same school of thought. Like, remember that they came up in the same training system in Russia. So, like, they're very familiar with each other. A lot of the things that these guys are taught, tactical-wise, they're similar. Even though they're different fighters and they have their own wrinkle they put onto it, they're built from the same software for a lot of intensive purposes. And he's going to have to establish that jab to be able to move Bivol off his square and not allow him to get into a rhythm. Because once he's able to throw punches in a rhythm, especially a chain of punches, it's a big problem. And secondly, the knee. Coming off that surgery, and I talked about it extensively in the first video, that is a hell of a that is a hell of a tall order to try to overcome going into a fight. And I'll give you a brief breakdown of the timeline I said in my video, and this is from my notes. So May 4th of 2024, they announced the meniscus tear. May 12th, let's say he gets 8 days to get a surgery date set, so you get the surgery, and then 4 days later you're able to finally put weight on the leg. And then let's say June 4th you're finally able to get on a bicycle, and that's 3.2 weeks after surgery. And I think that's around the time that we saw him put out the videos of him riding the bike through the mountains and up the hills and stuff. And then let's say June 30th to July 28th, you're going through rehab. So that's 8 to 12 weeks of rehab. And then by August 10th, you get a time off between July 28th and August 10th just to get a little bit of rest. 13 days of rest between rehab and camp. That's not a lot of time. So you're spending most of your time in that summer doing rehab. You're not even in shape yet. Like, you're not even getting in shape yet, let alone into boxing shape. So August 10th, your training camp begins. And then October 5th, training ends about a week before the fight. So, like, you're really only getting... you have to imagine that a lot of that time, a significant chunk of that time that he had for training camp was spent getting into shape, into boxing shape, as opposed to really being able to have a full and intensive camp where you're going through all the drills with your full wind and all these different things. And he still had a really, really good performance. And he didn't seem like he was very compromised by the knee, at least to the naked eye. But I wonder how much that played a factor, because he looked good, but just looking at the timeline, that is a tall order. to get that knee right in such a short amount of time. And then not just to get the knee right, but then to go ahead and perform at a high level against a killer like Bivol. So this time you're going into the training camp, your knee's healthier. You're going into the training camp fully healthy, I would imagine. And now you're putting all your focus into the fight plan. It's not a drop weight camp. It's not a fat camp. None of that stuff. You're going in there ready to go. So I think that's going to make a huge difference. And particularly the third key to victory is closing the distance. Just like I said, Bivol has to establish the jab to be able to create distance between Beterbiev. Beterbiev's knee has to be right so he can close distance, cut off angles. When Bivol is trying to move laterally, side to side, with his hands up in a high guard, being able to cut the ring off and follow him. And then, in my opinion, throwing more shots to the body. He did it more as the fight went on, but if he starts earlier, I don't necessarily know what else Bivol is going to do beyond what he did in the first fight, which is a hell of a game plan. I'm not saying it's not, but I think that it could cause some issues for Bivol if Beterbiev is able to get to the body earlier in the fight. So this is a very tough fight to call. It's even more difficult the second time around because they've seen each other once. Once you have some of the answers to the test, so to speak. So Bivol's seen Beterbiev. He's felt the power, and how does he respond to that? Does he have confidence after taking the power? Or is he going to still be tentative when he goes out for the 13th round? Because when he was getting hit solid and when Beterbiev was able to start pressing and getting some of those shots through, Bivol seemed like he didn't want any parts of that at all. Particularly in the 7th and 11th rounds. He looked like he really got on the bicycle. So that's the question. That's the question. How does he deal with the power? And then on the flip side, Beterbiev, he's seen what Bivol is about. The power isn't so much the issue as the fireworks that are coming your way. They might not all hurt, but nobody wants to get their fingers burned. Right? It's not like having your hand cut off, but you still don't want to get your hand burned, man. Like those jabs, those 1-2s, those 3-punch combinations, they may not knock you out, but by the time you reorient yourself after getting hit with the third punch, Bivol's over there. So that's where the problem comes in with a guy who's a high volume puncher, who's very precise, and who has a really good gas tank. You have to be aware of trying to break them down early to the body, and two, even as you're doing that, being mindful of what's coming back at you, being defensively responsible. Just because you can take a punch doesn't mean you should. So, and I think that's some of the things that Artur was alluding to, being sharper with his boxing going into this fight. And I think Bivol going into this fight is really preparing himself for the power. And I don't know if he's working on cardio because he came in a little bit lighter. So he weighed in at 174.1 and Beterbiev weighed in at 175 on the dot. So is he going to try to get that cardio in and really be moving and do more of the same, but just amplify his game plan and thus increase the likelihood of him getting a victory with a similar game plan? Or is Beterbiev going to be more confident in the knee, not really respect Bivol's power, and try to walk through him? That's yet to be seen. My prediction, I think that Beterbiev is going to win this fight. And I think that he's going to have a little bit more success than he had the first time, with the knee being healthier and him being able to cut off the ring. And I'm not sure if he's going to respect Bivol's power or not. Regardless, I think Bivol has done enough to show us that he's one of the toughest opponents that Beterbiev has faced, and I don't think he's going nowhere easy. So I think we're shaping up for another Really good fight. But I had Beterbiev winning this fight. That being said, it's just a tough one. But I'm gonna go with Beterbiev here. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, and we'll see what happens after the fights. Catch you on the next one. Peace.